Lead like a founder. Be a good man. Good friend of mine, I just came back from New York. Please, boo. Thank you. It's cold. The people are mean. They yell a lot. You don't like it. Just came back from New York, but there are some good people there. Met my favorite priest, Father Phil, and he, Father Roy rather, and he, we hung out a little bit last night after our event at the Tea Party, and I got to hang out with another good friend of mine. He's known to some of the listeners as Marty the Cop. Well, Marty the Cop is a serious guy. You don't want to mess with Marty the Cop. He's about 6'5", bald head, 290. He'll crush you. But he's got a heart this big. That's how big his heart is. Marty the Cop said something that I thought was as profound as the father's job is to get his kids to heaven. And this is one of these things, folks. It's not all about politics. We always look, oh, it's all about politics. We need to elect this guy. Why don't you just do the simple things? Work, home, church. That's Marty the Cop's life. Work, home, church. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Now, Mike Church's version is work, saloon, home, church. But I got it almost there. That matters. Politics is not the answer to our solution. We have an ample amount of debate, an ample amount of politics, an ample amount of discussion, an ample amount of elected leaders. Politics is not our solution. We are a rudderless, virtueless people. Not to accuse and not to preach, but this needs a sermon every now and then. A good, moral, virtuous people do not steal from their children's piggy banks. Like you gotta buy groceries every now and then, but walk through an exercise with me. How many have seen the movie Back to the Future? Right? Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, the great Christopher Lloyd. Let me put you in a DeLorean, okay? I'm gonna put you in Dr. Emmett Brown's DeLorean. Some of you have heard this bit before, some of you haven't. Makes you think about this. I'm gonna put you in Professor Emmett Brown's time machine DeLorean. You're gonna go to 2031 and you're gonna go knock on your kid's door. Hi, he's 40 years old now. Hi, son, how are you? Dad, what are you doing here? Oh, I came back to the future with Doc Brown. The doc's here with me. Well, what do you want? Oh, about $550,000. What do you want that for? Oh, I'm going to take it back to 2011 and spend it. Think about that. That's what you're doing to your kids by not stopping this generational theft. They will have to, that little girl right there, my son and my niece over there are going to have to pay this money back. The kids don't even, if you explain it to a 12-year-old, they go, I ain't doing that. Forget that, man. I'm never becoming an adult. You ran the bill up and you pay it. $550,000. Now, if Obama gets his way, that'll be a lot more. But you got to think about that. Do a good, moral people, do fathers allow their children to be stolen from like that? So why are we even having conversations about it? I tell you why. Because our fellow citizens, again, we started this exercise, are drunk on OPM. They are drunk on other people's money. We have to do a better job of evangelizing our cause and evangelizing the cause of limited government and liberty. Explaining the simple things like money. Like how a quarter, 25 cents made out of silver, can buy a plate of spaghetti and all you can eat. Explaining the simple things about how even if you thought in your delusional state that human beings could congregate 2,100 miles from where I stand right now and plan all of your affairs in a building called the Russell Office Building, Capitol Building in Washington, D.C., even if you thought that that could actually be practically possible, do you think at the same time, while they're planning your dinner, while Michelle Obama's planning the arugula your kids got to have for lunch, while they're doing all these wonderful things because they love us and care for us, that's why they do these things. Do you think you could manage to keep track of $3.7 trillion bills? I'm not saying, is it? The task that they charge themselves with is an impossible one. We really shouldn't be angry, and they really don't do that bad of a job. So they're $1.7 trillion off every other year or so. It's a rounding error by now. Just think about the enormity of that task, and whether or not you even think that that's possible. Let me ask you a question before I wrap up here. Do you think the Capitol building in Austin that only meets every other year can arrange your affairs for you? Do you want it to? Do you let it? Sometimes. But you fight it here, don't you? Do you think even when you have a building that's 2 blocks away that's not in your backyard that it can arrange your affairs? Balance your checkbooks, do the grocery shopping for you, get the kids to school, tell you where the route is and everything. Do you think that, would you want them to? Our problem is lack of virtue and lack of responsibility. We ask and let government do things that government has no business doing. None. If business can do it, business ought to do it. Government doesn't need to do anything business can do. Business can't coin money. We need the government to coin money. Businesses cannot declare war against a foreign enemy that has invaded San Diego. Only a government can, only a sovereign entity can then raise an army and defend this nation. All the rest of it, pretty much, you are capable of doing it. Let me just leave you with this last thought here, and I always wrap my speeches up, my talks with you wonderful people like this, in quoting Patrick Henry. And if we just obeyed this one thing from Mr. Henry, the one thing that he said that's not in that liberty or death speech, but everybody ought to memorize, in the convention to ratify the Constitution in 1788, where Henry was forced to be reckoned with. He and he alone opposed ratification because he said, if you centralize power, you are going to rule the day. He said, to use the vulgar adage, you will rule the day that you, what they call consolidate, that you made a consolidated government. But that wasn't the best part. Patrick Henry said something that Congressman Gohmert needs to remember, that the school teachers need to remember, that the judges need to remember, that the town hall needs to remember, that the mayor, the state representative, the governor who orders your daughters to get injections they don't want to get, and all the rest of it. One word. Pretty simple word. It's a beautiful word, actually. Liberty, sir, should be the direct end of all your deliberations. You don't tattoo it on your forehead. You don't need anything else other than that. If you keep that concept in mind, your legislators keep that concept in mind and act accordingly, and act on that simple phrase from the greatest orator in American history. How proud are we to have Patrick Henry as one of us? Liberty, sir, should be the direct end of all your deliberations. Keep that in mind. If you do that, you get those people in that hall over there, legislators everywhere, to remember that we can fix this. Remember, we have 4 things, 4 ways we can attack this. Are we up to the task? You ready for this? You're up to this challenge, right? So make liberty the direct end of all your deliberations. God bless you. Thank you.